Hey guys, and welcome to another gold making video. In this one I'm going to be showing you the top 10 gold farms in World of Warcraft at the moment in no particular order. Before we get into it, if you'd like to learn how to make millions of gold in retail, I would recommend checking out my complete gold making guide. It'll be the first link down below in the description box. It's basically a guide that I constantly update that has all the information I know about making gold in retail, with a whole heap of secrets and special gold farms and ways to make gold inside of it. However, let's get right into this video. So we're starting off with the Dark Rune and Essence of Undeath farm. So as you can see, there's a whole heap of these mobs here, and they all have a chance at dropping either one of their materials. Now these materials are really good for price wise because of the new patch coming. So as you can see, it's at Corrin's Crossing right here on the map, so in Eastern Kingdoms and then in Eastern Plaguelands. So this is where the farm is located, and why it is so good. These have always been used for profession crafts and things like that. However, they've just added a few new crafts that can actually use both of these materials, and the price of these materials have been going up and down a whole heap, like spiking really high, and when it does spike you can make a crazy amount of gold from this farm. It's a really easy farm to do. You can do this in a group or you can do it solo. Pretty much all these farms you'll be able to do solo or in a group, but obviously if you have a group you will get more kills per hour, which will mean more loot per hour, which will increase the gold you make obviously per hour if you are in a group. However, if you can't get a group together, you can do all these farms solo. So moving on to the next farm, we're going to be doing the Golden Pearl. Now the Golden Pearl is another material that is used in a whole heap of profession crafts, and a few new ones have came out recently, and the prices for the Golden Pearl are extremely good. So you want to head over to Blasted Lands, to this spot right here down on the beach, and what you'll find here is Nagas. Now if you do not see these, you need to go talk to the person and change the time zone of this zone of Blasted Lands to be for the invasion, and then you'll come down here and you'll actually see all of these Nagas on the beach. And now how you actually do this farm is that you farm the Nagas and you will get big mouth clams. Now inside of these clams they have a chance of giving you a whole heap of different pearls, including the Golden Pearl. So the other pearls aren't as expensive as the Golden Pearl. The Golden Pearl is the main pearl that you want to be going for, and it is what will fetch you the most amount of gold from these. You could sell the big mouth clams by themselves before opening, because a lot of people try to buy them in bulk, open a whole heap of them in their chance of getting some Golden Pearls. So you could sell the big mouth clams, but what I recommend doing is opening them yourselves, farming a whole heap of the Golden Pearls, and then selling the Golden Pearls on the auction house. They'll sell for a lot more, and they'll be a lot easier to sell. Right, moving on to the next farm, and this is going to be the FELCLOTH farm. So this actually works extremely well in a group of 5 druids. You can get these guys here to hyper spawn extremely quickly, and it's actually a really efficient farm with a group of 5 people. However, you can do this solo. Basically all you're going to be doing is running around killing these misty mobs. This is the macro I like to use. It'll basically just automatically do a moonfire on the closest mob that starts with misty, and as you can see these guys are called misty ghouls. So you want to basically just run around the 2 lakes here. You want to kill them. Now one thing I'd like to mention about this farm, as you can see, some of the mobs that we're killing actually drop no loot whatsoever. That's because their loot table, there's not much stuff on it, so sometimes they drop nothing, sometimes they drop the FELCLOTH or the odd transmog piece. Moving on to the next farm, and this is going to be the Essence of Water farm. Now this is a really good farm. You can do this solo, you can do this in a group. Now why this is such a good farm, and this is where it is located, on this little island in North STRATHOLME, on Stranglethorn, sorry, right down the bottom there on the island. Now why this is such a good farm is because you actually farm a material that sells constantly, like steady gold on the auction house. You also have a chance at a few zone transmog pieces and pets. So there's zone specific transmog items that drop from all the mobs down in STRATHOLME, and you have a chance of getting those, like the first mate's hat, and there's a few others that sell for a decent amount of gold. And also you have a chance, I believe, at the 2 pets. So there's 2 pets you can also get from here that are zone drops, and they also for a really good amount of gold. So as you can see, the main gold is the essence of water. Moving on to the next farm. Now this is the STRATHOLME farm. Now what you can get here is righteous orbs. Now these drop from the mobs inside of here, and one boss actually has a 100% chance of dropping 1 righteous orb. This where is located in Eastern Plaguelands, and it's STRATHOLME the instance. So we're going to be running this instance. Now there's a few other things you can get from here, like the pristine black diamond. It also drops and it sells for a decent amount of gold. So how you want to do this farm, just follow where I've showed on the map right now. The second last boss, this one right here, it's the one that actually will drop guaranteed a righteous orb. Now righteous orb is the main item we actually want to be farming from this farm. It sells for the most and it sells extremely well. The pristine black diamonds also have a good price, however they're a bit more rarer. You should be able to farm a decent amount of the righteous orbs from doing this instance. Obviously you also get some cool transmogs that are worth a decent amount to sell. There are some recipes also that sell on the auction house for a fairly good amount of gold. So as you can see, what I'm doing is just clearing all the mobs, gathering them all together, grouping them up, killing them, and then moving on to the next group. You want to make sure that you don't miss killing the second last boss. Like I mentioned before, it's a guaranteed righteous orb, so you definitely do not want to be missing that. So I'll just show you that in a second. So you could honestly, if you're just after the righteous orbs, because they do have a really good price at the moment, you could just farm the second last boss. So you could run in, kill the second last boss, load him up, and then rinse and repeat. So here's the second last boss, and as you can see, we got a righteous orb, and we actually got a second righteous orb from the mobs that we killed also. Then you just want to dream walk out, dream walk back in, reset the instance, and then you can run again, as simple as that. Moving on to the next farm, and this is the Primal Fire Farm. Now this is an older farm, this is from TBC. However, it still has a really good price. So where it's located is in Hellfire Peninsula, right up on the top part right here where this circle is. And now what you'll be farming from these is motes of fire. Once you have 10 motes of fire, you can then use them, and that will create 1 primal fire. Now I recommend selling the primals on the auction house, not the mote version, just because the primals have a higher value and a higher demand, I would say, and they're a lot easier to sell over time. Now this farm can make a really good amount of gold. You can do this solo, as you can see, or you can do it in a group. It's a really good farm both ways. Moving on to the next farm, and this is going to be a volatile farm, and that is right, we're going to be doing the volatile water farm. Now the volatile water farm, you also want to be using a potion of treasure finding, because we're in the zone where you can actually get tiny treasure chests. Now tiny treasure chests, they have a chance at dropping a whole heap of different materials that are on their loot table, and they also sell extremely well on the auction house. So with this farm, you'll be farming the volatile water obviously, and then also the tiny treasure chests, and you can get a whole heap of different materials from those tiny treasure chests. Now this is an older farm, however it's always a steady gold farm. If you're just after some quick gold that you know is going to sell really quickly, I would recommend doing one of these volatile farms. So moving on to the next farm is going to be the volatile fire farm. Now this is another really good steady gold farm where you can come if you just want to make like 20 to 50k gold and you know it's going to sell within that day. This is a great farm for that. All the materials you farm from the volatile farms sell extremely quickly, and it's just a good way, an easy way to make some steady gold. When you have a group of 5 people doing this, you can actually make a decent amount of gold per hour actually doing this. Also solo, but obviously if you have a group going, you will make more gold from these 2 farms. But it's very simple. You just want to farm up as much as the volatiles as you can and the tiny treasure chests, then open them up and sell all the materials. So moving on to a next farm, and this is actually going to be a dragonflight farm. There's not many that are still making good amount of gold with the dragonflight farms. a lot of the dragonflight materials have tanked down in price, unfortunately. However, we do have this one that is still making a really good amount of gold, and this is the glowing titan orb farm. So this item is used in a lot of the new dragonflight crafts, and they need a decent amount of them. So they've been selling constantly since they started dragonflight. There used to be a lot more. However, they increased the drop rate chance to actually get these from the mobs. Now even the little mobs at this farm will actually also drop the titan orbs. Before it was just the elites, but now it's actually all the mobs at this specific spot. So you can actually farm a whole heap of these per hour. They're around 500 gold each, so it really does add up extremely quickly. So what you want to do with this, you'll obviously want to have some decent gear because it is current content. The better geared you and your group is, the quicker you obviously kill them. You're going to want at least one tank when you're doing this that is fairly geared. The better geared the better, because they can do bigger pulls, and that means you'll be able to kill more per hour. So ideally you'd want a tank and then 4 other classes that have some really good AoE. The more AoE, the quicker these big pulls will actually die, and obviously the more glowing titan orbs you will farm per hour by doing this. Now if you are looking for groups to do this, you can just post in looking for group under custom and just write like glowing titan orb farm or titan orb farm, and a lot of people do join these farms. It's pretty fun to do actually. If you have current content gear, it's good to see how much DPS you can do, and the big AoE pulls are always pretty fun. And if you have a tank, tanking these can be pretty fun, and it does make a decent amount of gold per hour. So with the current prices, you can get up to like 50k gold per hour just from farming the glowing titan orbs. Now the final farm method that I'm going to be showing you is farming transmogs. So there's a few ways to actually do this. You can obviously run dungeons, how I am right here. This is Menatomes, a TBC dungeon. This is a pretty good dungeon. However, when I recommend farming dungeons for transmogs, I always recommend mixing it up. One day I'll do a different dungeon, then I'll completely mix it up the next day and do another dungeon. This way you're going to be building up a big catalog of a whole heap of different items, not just from the same dungeon. That's why I recommend running all the different dungeons, and it's fun. You get to explore all the other dungeons and relive running them pretty much. But with transmogs, the name of the game is numbers. So what you want to do is build up a massive catalog of transmog items on your auction house. Once you get over 1000 transmog items, decent transmog items, then you actually see the true potential of transmog farming and selling. Another really good farm that isn't dungeon is open world hyperspawns. So there's a few of these in the game, well a decent amount for transmog farming. There's a whole heap of them. I've actually got videos on a whole heap of different transmog farms on the channel if you want to go check that out. But I'm thinking about bringing out on the next video the top 10 transmog farms. So I'm going to save all the different spots for that. But this is Silithus. This is a well-known transmog farm that a lot of people do. It's a great hyperspawn. You can get the Skullflame Shield, Tibu's Blazing Longsword, which is worth like 1 to 2 million. It's a really good transmog piece. However, that is it for the transmog farming. That is the final gold farming method. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up. And also, like I mentioned before, if you want to learn how to make millions of gold in retail World of Warcraft, you can check out my gold making guide. It will be the first link down below in the description box. It is constantly updated, so in future expansions, if you already own a copy, you will get a free copy of the update sent straight to your email address for future expansions or whenever I update it. Till the next one, guys, take care.